Welcome on our next session with Ho. Every project comes with challenges, but how can we turn them into triumphs? Our next speakers are transformation leaders with broad experience in strategic change and business optimization. They will guide us through practical and adaptive ways to turn obstacles into wins. Please join me in welcoming Petq and Kristine Beškova.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Do you hear me well? Good. Great. So before we start with the official kickoff, we have a little exercise. I'm sorry, I just see so many familiar faces, so friendly, smiling at me. Thank you guys for coming. I hope you have a chance to have a coffee and be awake in the end of these 30 minutes. So the little exercise is by show of hands. I think you practiced a few times already today. So have you ever worked for a global corporation? Please raise a hand and keep it. Oh my God. Keep it.
Okay, keep your hands raised in case you ever thought this process makes absolutely no sense. Okay, yeah, well, that makes sense.
Okay, just a little bit more. Stay strong. So, have you ever been in a meeting with more than 10 people? You got this. Discussing how to solve a problem, and somehow, after the meeting, it gets worse.
I feel like
I feel you.
hands are going progressively more up towards the ceiling. Okay, and please raise your hand finally in case you think that the biggest challenge to implement change in your organization is actually other people's pushback. Okay, a lot of candidates for change management courses.
We can skip the Pilates workout today.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, cool. So thank you, and yeah, for the participation. So let's officially kick off. My name is Christine, and first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here with my partner in crime, Petq. Together, we've accumulated more than 25 years of. You must calculate the overtime in that number in experiencing global transformation, which basically means that we help companies to deliver, to tackle various business challenges.
Which basically means we've sat through a lot of meetings. A lot of meetings.
Thank you for the subtitles. Yeah. So we are both Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belts, and we have one very unique superpower, is to detect inefficiencies, unnecessary complexity, opportunities for standardization, and basically help these companies to deliver their long-term strategies.
And honestly, those strategies oftentimes feel like they have been written on the back of a napkin during a very long flight. So our job, in essence, is to help corporations turn those strategies into a transformation program that actually thousands of people can follow.
You're not roasting me today, not at all. Okay, so our presentation will have one main aim, is to give you some practical knowledge that you can use in the end of the session to tackle any type of problem that you have. We will not overwhelm you with our kind of terms, acronyms, process maps, demake cycles, so on. So we hope that in the end you have something useful that you can apply in your day-to-day job. Okay?
Yes, and just before we start, one thing to remember is Lean Six Sigma, Agile, those are not just fancy words. They can be put to practice and you can actually solve problems with them. It's not just about delivery. It's about solving problems along the journey. Okay, so let's start. We're going to show a few use cases today with you, a few examples of how we are solving such problems in our world. And I think a lot of those might sound familiar. So the first one that we're going to show is about process reengineering. Okay. Right. I hope you can see that simple process. It is quite simple in terms of, the global corporation world. What I'm showing on the screen is a process. This is new software version release cycle. So every time we do a new software version, we need to release it, deploy it. And this is the simple process. It's 6 teams going through 7 different stages from end to release that new version of the software. The problem here for that business that I helped to resolve the problem in essence was that they were spending too much time in this whole piece. They had SLAs to deliver the new versions, they were constantly failing to deliver them on time, and they didn't essentially know where their time was wasted. So we had to sit down and understand what's happening in reality today. As you can see, I don't know, okay, I don't know where the organizers went. Table is empty, but that's okay. I'm gonna try something, okay? If I break something, we're not gonna mention it. Okay, there's no pointer. So look at the map. You are going to see some things. The first thing, which I think is the most noticeable, is that that's a very waterfall process. So the first thing that you guys are going to notice is that this is a very waterfall process. So the colored boxes are each stage that they need to go through. So in order to kick the next stage, the one before that needs to be completed. Which means that some of the teams have a lot of work to do through all of the stages, while other teams are just basically sitting around waiting. Also, another interesting thing, and this is why I really wanted to have the pointer, but I don't know if you can see well enough. In the end of each stage, there is an oval shape in the process map. This indicates that the process can end, which means that we can go through 6 stages, in example, and we can end and terminate that process in the final stage before we actually deploy the new release. This happens because at the end of each stage, they were testing for compatibility of the changes, and if something fails, they terminate, they go back, they fix, they start anew. So that's a lot of time and effort wasted. Right, so we sat down, we understood everything that was going on with the team, and we designed a new process. This is how the new process looks. It's quite different than the first one, right? It's still very complicated because, let's be honest, new software version releases are a complicated process. However, there are a few key differences. In example, stage 1 and 2 are now completely merged and cleaned off of unnecessary things that the team was doing. So we introduced a lot of agile principles here. We were doing things simultaneously. Then the teams continue going through shorter and faster stages until they're able to complete that new release. And another thing that you're going to notice is those oval shapes are now reduced. So towards the end of the first stage, we're doing thorough testing of the new release. If something isn't working well, we go back, we terminate, we start anew in the beginning. So we don't waste any more time and effort going through the whole thing in order to realize that something might not be working well. Right. Key takeaways. You need to always walk the process. Oftentimes, when we do something in our day-to-day, it becomes simple for us. Because we get so good at it, we know everything about it, right? So when I ask somebody to tell me, okay, how do you do your task X? Your immediate answer is going to be, oh, you go in the system, you do this, you do that, and that's done. But if you sit down and write it out, you're going to see a process map which looks like this. Because we don't really stop and think about all of the details, because we become the experts. We're so good at it, we don't even think about it, right? So sit down, walk the process, do the so-called Gemba, and understand everything that's going on today, real time. Work as a team. Whenever I go and do this for a business or a team, I have no idea what those guys are doing. So I need to work with them, and I need them to walk me through everything that they do. Treat root causes, not symptoms. When you know the whole picture, you can then start asking why the things that are happening are happening. When you understand why something's happening, then you're able to treat the reason behind it. And finally, think end-to-end. Make sure that you look at the whole picture and you don't break things by fixing others. An example, if I wanted to fix something in stage 3, would that break something upstream or downstream? So make sure you think holistically. Okay, that was the first example. Let's continue. Chrissy?
Thank you, Petq. Okay, that was a very good example of opportunities that are identified on the floor when teams are raising hands. Let's do our day-to-day life better. But I'll give you a slightly different perspective when the middle management can spot this. And what usually happens is come to our team and it's like, we have a problem, we don't know how to solve it, so let's see what we can do. So I really feel that you missed this exercise. So let me know if someone of you is working for a finance team. Okay, that's enough, thank you. For the rest, please imagine. Imagine that you're part of the finance team in a tech company, and the example I'll give you is specifically for the so-called account receivables team. I see some familiar faces from there. So in our case, this is the team who is responsible to ensure that the company will collect its cash on time. Quite no pressure work, right? And as many teams, they have their KPIs and their targets. And if they cannot reach it, this may raise questions. In our case, this responsibility sits with the so-called controllers. So these are the people who are responsible to review data, to identify if payments are received on time, if not, to communicate with the customer, to understand what is going on. And this usually happens by phone, by email, like, hello, could you please pay for that? Politely, and if not, we may end up through a whole cycle, rather getting the money or even taking legal actions. So as you can imagine, this may also lead to some customer dissatisfaction. In our perfect world, this was happening manually. Everything. Write an email manually, check the reports manually, plan the next steps manually, all of that. And these controllers are quite experts in their work. A lot of skills are required to do this job. Excellent. And as many of us stuck in the copy-pasting work, this raised the question, is this the best way we utilize our talents and our resources? And of course, the answer was no. So the management reached out to us with the request to see what we can do better. And we started with something that Petq already mentioned. By the way, this is my very poor controller in AR. I hope you'll see it. So let's see what we can do. And we started with a simple workshop just to understand where we are. So what Petq mentioned was the process mapping. Guys, I cannot emphasize enough, from all the process improvement tools that you may use, process map is my number one. No matter what methodology or technique or principle you take, this is the way you can visualize not what is in the SOP, not what is supposed to be, but what actually it is. And if you see that joke online, it's like, I need to train a new comer. Oh, I forgot what was the process. I know only my own way to do that. So we started with this simple process maps, to understand where are the overlaps, where are the lack of control, what we are missing, why we do that, why the customer are complaining, where are all the manual steps, you name it. And of course, the end goal was to see what we can do better. During this discussion, we not only found where are the pitfalls, but also where are the opportunities for automation. So this will be like a hint number 2. I know automation and AI are very fancy these days, and they've always been. But before automating anything, first step will be simplify your process, standardize it, so you can exclude as many dependencies and exclusions that may occur. So this may help you to maintain this automation easier and not, as Petq mentioned, turn the process from one place to another.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. But in real life, we are all pressured to firefight every day, like this is with the deadline for yesterday, so we can understand that. But even having these teams to stop for a moment and think about the ASIS process, for example, we were looking in this process in AR, but we raised simple questions like, who is actually issuing these invoices. Oh, we have a billing team before that. Oh, we have sales before that. Let's check what these guys are doing. And it's rarely to find something like a big bang solution. It's usually step by step you find these little things that can change the process after you. Just a simple example was a database of emails. Like AR are calling, why haven't you paid? They said, this is the wrong email. Okay, let me fix it for that. But they fixed in their system, never tell to billing. So the next month, this will happen again. And this is not really the world-class service that we would like to provide to our customers. So one of the keynotes that ended up from these workshops and the solutions that they identified was, of course, to automate everything that could be in terms of data, like dashboards, extract databases, who we need to contact. It was very interesting to automate the notification process. So they have like 3 stages. First one, email is depending on the date of the invoice, like, dear customer, your date is approaching, could you please pay it on time? Like the second one is, you haven't paid. And the third one is, okay, the system will notify the controller that a human needs to interact and take further actions, understand what's the problem. The end-to-end process review was another thing that was very useful, so the other teams can also understand what is happening as a result of their actions. Okay, so of course the results were immediate. We open up capacity for these people to do something better, more complex, more related to their skills. But if I need to have one highlight of this story, was challenge these as-is processes. Like I used to say, we are not doctors, thanks God, because I'm so easy to distract. But if you see that something can change, just ask the questions. We usually hear like, oh, this is how we used to do it for 5 years. Okay, so that's a trigger, like, can we review this and do it better? And listen to your teams, gather feedback, visualize your process, and the result will not be laid there. Okay, that's my pretty much automation piece. Hope it helped. That's the happy one. Thank you.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the applause.
Why did you interrupt my applause? Once again, please.
Как се ги поиска, браво! Everything Chrissy wants, Chrissy gets. Okay, guys. One more use case, one more example of an issue that we help resolve in the corporate world. This one is more about customer experience. Right. So years ago, I was working on a case where we had, it was about client complaints. And it was a company I'm not going to mention. But, you know, their client complaints volumes were going through the roof for more than a year. They were like doing all sorts of things internally to help fight that issue. They were trying to reduce the volume of complaints. They were trying to handle them faster because obviously the teams had a lot of huge workloads related to those complaints. They were giving away gifts and bonuses to clients to keep them around. But ultimately, everything that they do had only a temporary effect. So when I sort of first got together with the management team, they were like, Petya, we're doing all of these things, but what do these clients want? Why are our complaints still going through the roof? So the first thing that we did, we started looking at data, right? So whenever you have a problem coming from your clients, you need to understand and gather as much data as you can in order to understand the nature of the problem and what might be causing it. Remember that a lot of the things that we initially hear or feel might be just symptoms of the problem. In order to understand the problem, we need to dig deeper into the data. So the company had 2 types of data, as most companies do, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative data is pretty much text, written words, client testimonies, surveys, everything the clients are saying. But qualitative data usually is difficult to work with in terms of like tracking, monitoring, building dashboards, because it's words, right? Well, now, I guess with AI, it's a bit easier. quantitative data is what that company was using to understand all of their metrics around complaints. So that's like number of complaints, turnaround times, handling times, number of complaints per client. So they were really using that data to track their complaints and understand trends, like when do complaints spike? Like, is it around Christmas or whatever's happening? In order to understand really what the issue was, though, we had to do a deeper dive in the qualitative data, because none of the quantitative data, the numbers, was really telling us what the complaint was about, right? You need words for that. You need to understand the clients better. So what I did is I sat down with a team of people and I went through tons of qualitative data. We went through so many different survey results, client reviews, client testimonies. We had to clean up our data. We had to build it. We had to narrow it down to specific categories to understand exactly what those complaints were about. Afterwards, when we had our data cleaned up, I ran statistical analysis on it, and I understood what were the main trends related to client complaints. And there were a few things which were like the main themes, but one thing stood out. Apparently, whenever a client was using the software of this company, they're selling software, so whenever they were using the software, if they enter incorrectly 3 times their username and password, the account was locked. So in order to unlock it, they had to call customer support. So what the issue is that customer support was not 24/7, or, the software was used all around the globe. So if someone from the other end of the world was having that issue, nobody in our company is on the phone to help them. Or if it's during working time, the phone line was always busy. So this is not apparent from the quantitative data, right? But we had to go through the qualitative to understand that this was actually happening, and that was like the top complaint. Clients are having difficulties resetting their passwords. We're getting help for that. So what we did in order to solve this issue, now that we know it, now that we know where the problem is stemming from, is we sat down and we thought of different solutions. The biggest thing that made the biggest change was introducing a self-service portal for clients, where securely going through specific steps, they could reset their passwords. We also increased the attempts from 3 to 5. We introduced 24/7 support because we sort of split the people in the call center, in the support groups, into night shifts and day shifts. And apparently, people were very happy with this, because people were happy to take up night shifts because they were sort of young professionals. They had during the day like school or other activities. So there were a lot of people who found this a good fit. And obviously, we improved overall how the company was collecting data. So introduced dashboards, complaint categories. And I know this sounds simple. I know it sounds easy. But remember where we started from. They were doing so many things for a year, and nothing really changed permanently. So understanding where your client is coming from is essential, and relying on data. Okay, so those were our 3 examples. We're gonna now sort of do a quick summary for you guys in terms of our checklist for process improvement.
Does someone remember what I said about process mapping? It's my favorite, yeah. That's the highlight, thank you. So yeah, before you start improving any kind of problem, first walk the process, understand what is the S's, like really visualize it step by step in order to be sure that you have all the aspects from the end-to-end perspective.
In data we trust, with the last use case, always trust your data. Go to data first. Process mapping is data as well. You get data, you understand how your process is performing, but also data which is qualitative and quantitative, this which is coming from your process performance and understanding your clients. A lot of companies, we even watched a TED Talk yesterday and we were laughing so hard. A lot of companies are using the slogan, we put our client at the center of what we do, right? We've all seen that. a lot of companies. How many of them actually do it? I work for a company that has that same slogan. So yeah, listen to your clients, okay? That's the highlight. Listen to what your clients are saying. If your data isn't able to tell you what your clients want, you need to change your data. Your data is not good.
Or you may have no data. That also happened in real world. Okay, so combining the process with data, clean it. Like before automating, whenever doesn't make sense, put it on the table, discuss it, and then decide if this is something that needs automation or you can redesign the process.
Listen to your clients, yeah. Check.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely our highlight is really challenge. What is the SS process, especially in huge corporate organizations? Things are so complicated. Sometimes we don't know what's happening before us, after us. I literally have the moment where I need to investigate who is the team that puts a file somewhere on SharePoint and you cannot understand for days. So don't trust that these guys figure it out before you. So bring your ideas, listen to your team, brainstorm with other people, and really change the SEs because there is always an opportunity to improve.
And yeah, that was our guide to solving problems in the corporate world. We hope that there was something for you guys to take away from this whole
Survival
piece.
pack.
Survival pack.
Thank you very much for your attention, guys. It was our pleasure.